support reform, restore, believe that Farage is actually going to get rid of immigrants or even illegal immigrants. Let me explain to you why he's not going to do any of that. And it's not just because all politicians are liars, even though that is obviously true, but there is actually a logical reason, if you think about it, why he won't get rid of immigrants. I've thought about this for months, but I haven't actually written anything down, so I'm just going to try and break it down bit by bit by bit. Now, Reform and Farage are funded by millionaires and billionaires actually love immigrants. They love immigrants so much because it actually gives them more money. And I'll explain why in a second. Whenever you look at politics, you always have to look back in history to look forward and what to do in the future. The way that our capitalist society has always been sustained is by having really cheap labor, which means that the money that we get from that labor is more than the money that we pay people to do that labor. Now, the way that was done in the past was through slavery. Slavery and racism was actually invented so that they couldn't get people that they wouldn't actually have to pay to do labor. And then obviously in Victorian times when they used to pay people very low wages to get lots of money. Now, as societies progress and industrial revolutions happen, workers realize, hey, it's not fair. I'm giving all this value and all this effort and you're not paying me back for this value. I deserve to be paid a fair amount to live. I want to be able to live and I don't want you to just be stripping all the value. So workers come together and they unionize, which means millionaires and billionaires no longer can only pay the workers 1 single cent. They actually have to pay them what they deserve. Because if you're giving so much value, you have to get some of it back. Billionaires don't like having less yachts. If they give more money to workers to live, then they'll have less money to buy their own yachts. This is why a lot of labor has been shifted to emerging countries. Because in emerging countries, these workers are being exploited. They don't already know the worth of their value, so they can pay them very minimal amounts. So that's why most labor has shifted to other countries, and that's what actually is stealing the jobs of British people. Billionaires are ripping the jobs from British people. Instead, these jobs, imagine you could have been a seamstress, you could have made clothes. You want to buy clothes in Britain, and then another British person makes those clothes and you buy it. That could have had a job, that could have made thousands of jobs in England. But billionaires don't want to pay the British people what they deserve. They want to exploit some people in India, Bangladesh. They want to exploit them instead of giving jobs to people in Britain. That's first of all what's taking away jobs. But there are obviously some jobs in Britain that can't be moved. For example, like factories can be moved, but services have to be stayed in Britain to occur, which is why billionaires actually love immigrants. By having lots of immigrants coming into the country, they can lower the wage. They can lower the amount to pay. Because imagine, if there are 50 people applying for 100 jobs, these corporations have to fight for your labor. They have to fight for the value that you preserve. But now, if they have 1,000 people applying for these 50 jobs, they can pay you as little because you'll be happy to accept anything. Now, this isn't the immigrant's fault, because this immigrant who used to live in the emerging country would have been exploited either way. So now you get to pay all the workers less amount of money, which is immigrants and working people are both being exploited. They're both not getting the money that they deserve. As I said before, every time that billionaires do this and there's an unfair value gap, workers eventually unionize and demand the money that they deserve. However, billionaires don't want that. They don't want to pay the money that you deserve. They don't want that. So they think, the British people are saying, you're paying us less. That's true. They're saying there are less jobs. That's also true. But it's our fault. The billionaires are thinking that's our fault. But we don't want to tell them that it's our fault. We don't want them to turn against us. No, we can't have that. So who should